Hey guys, it's Jesse. Welcome back to another episode of Jesse's Card Empire. To a Commander deck tech. This is one of my own brews. I've been working on this for a while. It's been inspired by several other things I've seen, but this is kind of the direction I wanted to take it. I'm gonna just say it up front. This deck is a meme. This is several different things I've wanted to do for a while now. All kind of jammed into one deck, and there are vastly more competitive versions that you could do by stripping out all the memes I put in here and putting in good Magic cards. But if you're trying to make a Commander deck that is 5 color and fairly priced, like it's definitely, this could be way more expensive for a 5 color deck. I won't say this is precisely budget, but I do think that the price point on this is pretty fair. So we're gonna jump into kind of like what the deck is, and then we'll start going over the cards. So our commander is Niv-Mizzet the Reborn. A lot of you know Niv-Mizzet. He's a very popular 5 color commander. He has, absolutely amazing ability of when he enters the battlefield, you look at the top 10 cards. For each color pair, you get to get exactly one color from that color pair. Max value Magical Christmas Land is he's a draw 10. Usually he's a 3 to 5 in most decks. When I was playing him about 8 months ago in Standard, when I was screwing around with Niv-Mizzet Reborn, in Standard, I think I peaked out at like a 7 card hit. That was pretty ballsy. But that being said, we needed somebody who was 5 color, and he has a nice ETB that nets you some value, but he's not, like, the deck is not geared to be absolutely broken around him, because also another thing we had that affected our deck building, another restriction on it, was we are playing a companion. We get Jegantha the Wellspring as our companion, so no card in our starting deck has more than one of the same mana symbol in its mana cost. And then Jegantha gets to tap for Wooburg, and you can't spend that mana to pay the generic parts. So I wanted to have a way in the deck that helps us cast our commander rather consistently. And this is one of those ways. We just have this in the companion zone chilling for when it's ready to come down. For when it's ready to come down and help us out. So, there's 2 memes in this deck. The first meme is we're a gate deck. So we are using the Guild Gate land cycle. We play all 11 Guild Gates, and then also the, you're like, but there's 10 guilds. There's Gateway Plaza, which also counts as a gate, and is the Rainbow Gate. So it's like Ruptured Spire, where you got to pay 1 when it comes in, or otherwise you have to sacrifice it. But other than that, we do have all the gates in here, and we have all the gate support lands. So we have the gate support lands, Plaza of Harmony. When it enters the battlefield, if you control 2 or more gates, gain 3 life. And then also it can tap for either colorless or add 1 mana of any type that a gate you control could produce. So it ends up being a 5 color land. Helps out in the deck. And then, of course, what is our payoff for all of these gates? Well, we're playing Maze's End. We're a Maze's End deck. That is one of the ways we win the game, is to just Maze's End ourselves to victory. We just get the opportunity to, assemble our gates, get 10 gates, activate Maze's End, and we win. That's simple. So, how do we best facilitate that? How do we make it so that this can happen consistently in a 100-card singleton format? And for that, I turned to Core Set 2021, where we got the Sanctums. The Sanctums are also a 5-color sub-theme that can generate a ton of card advantage. So, using the Sanctums and the Hondens in tandem for all the Shrine support, we are now a Gate Shrine deck. These are our two memes. I actually think that if you can stack up like all these Hondens and Sanctums, like it's actually very good. It's just the question is can you get all that onto the field and get it all stacked up before you just get decimated in a game of Commander. So we have some stuff to help with that. We have some stuff that help us get more than one land onto the battlefield as fast as possible. So without further ado, let's jump into the deck tech. We'll start with creatures. Playing a total of 18 creatures, and this is a lot of these creatures either give us additional land drops or help us get lands. The goal is to, as consistently as possible, have access to all of our colors, and more importantly, try to get all the gates onto the field at once. So we have Azusa Lost But Seeking, who is on a nice little downtick in price right now because of M21. District Guide, Gate support. It's a 3-mana 2/2 that gives you a body and can go get a gate or basic land and add it to your hand. So again, helps with fixing. Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Again, another additional land drop and makes all of our lands rainbow lands, which is fantastic because that makes sure we're going to be able to cast our wide array of spells in multiple colors. Faber Elder is a nice little threat comboed with ramp. Basically, at his pinnacle, he will tap for 5 mana, be a 5/5 with vigilance. So that means he can get in for 5, and then after combat, he can tap to produce 5 mana in basically the Wooburg colors. So he makes mana. He makes 1 mana of each color for each color among mana symbols you already control. So by himself, already having green and white, he can just out the gate, if it's just him on the battlefield, tap for 2. He makes a green and a white. So again, he's another card that gives us the ability to where if we already have the board set up, like say we have Sanctum of All on the battlefield, we can just tap him to cast our commander. Seems really good. Then again, we also have just some threats. Gate Colossus. He's actually a really nice recursive threat. He's an 8-mana 8/8, but he costs 1 less to cast for each gate you control. He cannot be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and whenever a gate enters the battlefield under your control, you may put Gate Colossus from your graveyard on top of your library. So he's a nice recursive threat that just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back through the course of the game, making your opponents have to deal with an 8/8. And yes, he can just be chumped by like 3/3s and 4/4s and stuff. And that will happen, but it's still just a threat that your opponents have to answer, only to have it come back. And I do really like that. Plus, he's an uncommon from the middle set of the Ravnica block, so 23 cents. Woohoo! Gatekeeper Vine is a 2-mana 0/2 defender. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land or a gate, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So it's another version of District Guide, but this one clocks in at 2 mana, but doesn't give us any offensive capabilities. So, Gatekeeper Gargoyle, a 6-mana 3/3 with flying, but it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for each gate you control. So at the pinnacle, you can technically have a 6-mana 14/14 flyer. Seems pretty good. Seems like it could be fun. No recursive abilities like the Gate Colossus, but I think it's pretty solid fit in here. Again, it's just another big dumb flyer that your opponents have to do something We are a 5-color deck, so of course we're playing Golos, because why wouldn't we? We're land focused. He ramps us on our land and gets us another one into the battlefield. And then also we're trying to make, the Wooburg mana frequently. So, Wooburg and 2 to spin off the top 3 and see what happens for free. Now, again, we're not really built around this. Like we don't like slam in crazy big threats that we just get, insane value, but we get solid value out of it. I think we're underutilizing a lot of very powerful cards in this deck, but it's for the memes. Then we have Greenside Watcher. He's kind of like a bad Arbor Elf for gates. He's a 2-mana 2/1. You can tap him to untap a target gate, so that's kind of cool. Again, mostly just for fixing and lets us kind of pseudo ramp. Another very important card is, because we're doing the Hondens and the Sanctums and all that, and we have a lot of enchantments in the deck. I put in a Hana Ships and Navigator, so we could get artifacts and enchantment cards back from the graveyard for 3 mana and a nice little recursive package. Plus, she's Azorius, so our commander synergizes with being able to pluck her out of the deck. So that's really nice. Next, we have our first probably big expense, Oracle of Maldaya. Now, with the recent reprinting, its price has come down, but also with the scarcity of Jumpstart, the price has not come down as far as I thought it would. It's currently sitting at just shy of $33, but it does let you get an additional land on each of your turns, and you can play lands from the top of your deck. So if you stack up Oracle of Maldaya, Azusa, Dryad of the Elysian Grove, if you start getting all these cards onto the battlefield side by side, and you have a vein of lands on the top of your deck, you just boom, 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 and suddenly they're all out of the way. So that could be really, really nice, especially if that's what propels you into getting your gates, getting your Maze's End, and doing all sorts of other fun shenanigans. Speaking of playing additional lands off the top of your deck, and a card we can grab with Niv-Mizzet, we have Rada Heart of Keld out of Core Set 2021 as well. As long as it's your turn, Rada Heart of Keld has first strike. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play lands from the top of your library, and you can pay 4 red-green. Rada gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of lands you control. So she's a threat in and of herself, but she's more here to be the ability to play lands off the top of the deck. That, again, combined with, Azusa, combined with Dryad, and some of the other ones we'll get into. Just, again, we're trying to stack up all those additional lands. Now, we do have a ton of enchantments, so Cedar Enchanter being the only enchantress that is in Celestia, as far as I'm aware of. So it's able to be searched out by Niv-Mizzet. It doesn't conflict like a lot of the other enchantresses with Jengatha, and it gives us an enchantress for all of our Hondens and Sanctums and stuff to go and get the draw power for playing enchantments is nice. Of course, I've started cutting him out of a lot of my decks. I'm actually not too big on Solemn Simulacrum anymore, but I do think it is still a very solid commander card, especially at the budget level and in certain decks. This is one of those decks. Again, we're just getting, trying to get more lands, trying to ramp, trying to fix our mana, and really do powerful things. I say powerful loosely because this deck is very casual, but it can do some dumb things. So Solemn Simulacrum is beloved here. He fits in nicely. Then we have a Tatiova, Benthic Druid. A card that is slowly creeping up. This is one of those uncommons that I think if it doesn't get a reprint in the next 5 years is going to be like a $5, $6, $7, $8 uncommon from a Dominaria, and the foils are going to be $30, $40. Just saying, I'd invest in this card now. But this is also a card that I can very well see them being like, oh, that's a good commander card. We're just going to start sticking it in commander products forever. So Tatiova, Benthic Druid. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Well, I've mentioned all these ways we're trying to get additional land drops. So, synergy? Synergy. Um, Speaking of, also, it's a Simic, so that's another killer scheme that Niv-Mizzet can hit. Speaking of other Simic cards, we have to address probably the most expensive card in the deck, but I felt he was very necessary. Uro? Uro? Yeah, I know nobody likes him. I know he's like the bane of Standard now that they've had all their proper bannings and Standard's like fixed-ish for the most part. Standard seems to be a very healthy format right now. Uro is probably the last degenerate aggressive ramp thing left, but I know that they're not going to get rid of Uro for two reasons. One, Theros did not sell well, and now that he is the top card of Theros, Theros will probably sell a bit better. Two, Zendikar Rising coming out in the fall, they want him to be there for landfall mechanics. They need that kind of ramp. So Uro's not going anywhere in Standard, but he is a great addition in this deck. He synergizes with the theme, what we're trying to do. And cheekily, because his escape cost is not his casting cost, he doesn't throw off the Jengatha requirement, so I really like him here. He does get additional lands into play, he draws his cards, he gains his life, and trust me, once we start getting all of our pieces onto the board, people are going to aggro you. They're not going to like what you're doing. They're going to realize that you're doing Sanctum shenanigans, and suddenly you're drawing 6 or 7 cards a turn, and they're going to start coming at you, and Uro is going to be a way to just gain a bit of life back, get a big, you can escape him, in a couple of turns, and get a nice big blocker on the board, or you can start getting aggressive with your Uro to get more lands into play, draw more cards. Final creature in the deck, Wayward Swordtooth. Again, additional land on each of your turn, is an undercosted 3 mana 5/5 with the drawback of he can't attack or block unless you have the City's Blessing. But again, another card, it's already, Rivals of Ixalan was 2017? This card is 3 years old and it's already $9. Like, get your copies of this card soon, because in the next 2 or 3 years, this card is not going to see a reprint, and it's going to be like $20. It's really, really good. It's just going to stack up, like, in all these aggressive ramp strategies, or aggressive fixing strategies. So, next we'll move into sorceries. We're in 5 colors, so we might as well play a Bring to Light. Converge. Converge, I think, was probably one of the best but most underutilized mechanics. It was kind of like Sunburst, but it was really good. Basically, for each color that you put into it, the broader the spectrum goes. So it defaults at, you're going to be a base of 2 because it has Simic in its casting cost. It's green, blue, and 3. But if for that other 3 you put white, red, and black, you're going to be able to search your library for a creature, instant, or sorcery card with converted mana cost of 5, spent for Bring to Light, exile it, and then you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So, this is the basis of Niv to Light decks in Pioneer. Is you cast Bring to Light, you get Niv-Mizzet out of your deck. Niv-Mizzet then generates you a ton of value, and also is a 6/6 flyer. Seems good, bruh. And then you just outvalue and outgrind your opponent, and you just get so far ahead that they can never catch up. This doesn't get Niv-Mizzet because blah blah blah, but this will let you net key pieces out of the deck up to 5 CMC. Most importantly, it lets you get Sanctum of All very consistently, so I like that a lot. And a great way to cast a Bring to Light or our Niv-Mizzet or some of our other cards is Channel the Suns. It's a very interesting ritual. It's 3 and a green for a sorcery that adds Wooburg to your mana pool. I'm usually not too big on ritual effects in Commander, other than like if you're trying to like do storm shenanigans or whatnot. But here I think this card fits in really nicely. It's a strong 48 cents, so it's budget friendly. And more importantly, you can just straight up on turn 4, if you've done no ramping, cast your 5 mana commander. If you have just seemingly played a land every turn, you didn't have any mana rocks, you didn't have any ramp, you just played a land on turn 4, Channel the Suns, Niv-Mizzet Reborn, get 3 to 5 cards. Seems good. So, I think this is a very powerful card in the deck and very helpful. We have Circuitous Route, which is our ramp, one of our ramp spells that can search for up to 2 gate cards and put them on the battlefield tapped. It can also get basic lands, but ideally, you want gates. So that's really good. We also have probably one of the best search cards in general, which is Conflux. Search your library for a white card, a blue card, a black card, a red card, a green card. Reveal those cards and put them into your hand. For 3 in Wooburg. So, obviously, you cast this, you go get all the pieces you need. So if you want to stack up a bunch of Hondens and Sanctums, you can go get them all. You want to get different ramp pieces from out of your deck, go ahead and get them. We got multicolored shenanigans enough that you can bend the search restriction because it does not say monocolored. It just has to be one of those colors. So you can play around with that. Really, really good and also cheap. Now, the early build of this, when I was not using Jengatha, had Casualties of War, which is a card I am huge on. I love Casualties of War. Unfortunately, Casualties of War and Jengatha don't get along. So I had to cut Casualties of War, and I was looking for a good replacement. I think that is Decimate. For 2 red-green, you have Sorcery, destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land. So you get to do almost essentially what you're doing with Casualties of War. Casualties of War also hits a Planeswalker. So, could be a little bit better. But if we want to have Jengatha in our companion zone, we got to make the sacrifice to play the Decimate. Now, if you're not, I don't think you 1-for-1 swap these. I think you find room somewhere else on one of the other cards I'll point out. And you play both Decimate and the Casualties of War side by side. We have an Idyllic Tutor. I think Idyllic Tutor is a great fit for the deck because we are going... I think Idyllic Tutor is a great fit for the deck. Can you fuck off? I think Idyllic Tutor is a great fit for the deck because we are playing a total of 15 enchantments, which we will get into later. And this just lets you search up for whichever one you need at the moment. Again, comboing together, if you have like this, and you have Channel the Suns, you hit Idyllic Tutor, you go get Sanctum of All, you play Sanctum of All, you get to slam Channel the Suns, or you slam Channel the Suns, you get to play Sanctum of All. I'll get it in the right order at some point. So I think that's a nice little flexible tutor for the deck. Being to have 15 different options in there. We get to play one of my favorite wraths. It's very chaotic, but we can search it up off of Niv-Mizzet, and also it doesn't conflict with Jengatha. The biggest problem is a lot of the wraths that I wanted to play conflict with Jengatha. Time Wipe conflicts with Jengatha. Kaya's Wrath conflicts with Jengatha. Supreme Verdict conflicts with Jengatha. So we needed a Wrath that was a Guilt Pair Killer that you could get off Niv-Mizzet that didn't double up on mana symbols. So we went with Last One Standing. Oh, I love this card. It's 3 mana, choose 1 creature at random, and then destroy everything else. It could be your creature that survives. It could be your opponent's. You don't know. You just spin the wheel. The best creature on the board could survive, and you could just king make somebody right there. But for 3 mana, I think that's a risk we can take, especially in a deck that's a meme. Like, we're trying to just meme the table with this. They don't, like, and I think this is one of the ways to do it. Now, we do have an effective Wrath. In fact, it's kind of better than a Wrath. Because we have Merciless Eviction, which is very nice. 4 white and a black. And you get to choose one. Exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, or exile all planeswalkers. So that's a real nice one you can get off Niv-Mizzet. Doesn't conflict with Jengatha. So you have access to that. What other rampant dues we got? We have Open the Gates. For a single green, search your library for a basic land card or a gate card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So we have Open the Gates, we have Gatekeeper Vine, and we have District Guide. 3 copies of the same effect. 1 on a single mana sorcery, 1 on a 2 mana 0/2 creature, and 1 on for 3 mana and a 2/2 creature. So pretty good, nice little consistency of being able to search up gates. Now, these are the kind of sketchy wraths I'm playing, but I do like them a lot. Savage Twister is a gruel wrath. It's a card for red and a green and X. Savage Twister deals X damage to each creature. So it does let you clear the board, and potentially, like, if you have something big out, like a Gate Colossus or something, you could clear everything out of the way so it could get in. But it's kind of meh overall. There are plenty of cards that are better. But for where we need it in the niche, I think it's the best pick. It doesn't conflict with Jengatha, and Niv-Mizzet can get it. If I were building this without Jengatha, I would be dropping this and putting in Casualties of War. I think it would be much better. The other kind of quirky wrath is Solar Blaze. For 2 and Boros, each creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. So anything with a thick booty will be fine, but anything that's supporting all their weight on the front end to smash face is going to punch itself to death. So I think that is a fantastic card here. Instant-wise, we have Anguished Unmaking, so a nice little Orzhov. Exile target non-land permanent at instant speed. You lose 3 life. Sure, take that trade. This lets you hose just about anything. We have Beast Within. It's a nice little budget option because Beast Withins are fairly cheap. This one's currently being displayed at like $2 a piece right now, so you have that. Growth Spiral. You think we weren't playing Growth Spiral? Fun little modal spell that I came across. Fits with Niv and Jengatha. Kaya's Guile. It's a Modern Horizons card. It does see a little bit of modern play, but I think this is its place to shine. For 1 white-black, you get an instant where you can choose 2. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, so an Edict effect, that's only hits your opponents, which is nice. Exile all cards from target opponent's graveyard, so you got graveyard control. Create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying, and you gain 4 life. Now, obviously, creating the 1/1 flyer is not that impressive in Commander, and the 4 life is kind of meh, but you can also entwine this for 3, so for the additional 3, you pay 6, you get to do all of them. But being able to have an Edict effect and graveyard control that you can get off of Niv-Mizzet, I think is very important. We also have the Ravnica standard classics Mortify and Putrefy. So one kills an artifact or creature, and the other kills a creature or enchantment. So this is just great ways to continue shutting those down. And then finally, Utter End. Again, more instant speed, exiling target non-land permanent, Orzhov Kellers, so again, we can get it off of Niv. Moving on to enchantments. We're kind of stacksy, with the shrines and everything. It's less that we're stacking up negative effects for our opponents, and more of just us stacking up a bunch of buffs for ourselves. So we have Ghostly Prison, which I mean, I agree, is a negative effect for the opponent. They can't attack us without paying mana. But it lets us get that cushion to keep us alive. We have Guild Summit, so this is some gate support. When it enters the battlefield, we may tap any number of untapped gates and draw a card for each gate that we tap this way, and then whenever a gate enters the battlefield under control, draw a card. So, not the single most broken card draw, but still pretty solid. Hondens, we are playing all 5 Honden of Cleansing Fire, which is gaining 2 life for each shrine at the beginning of our upkeep. Infinite Rage deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of shrines. Life's Web puts 1/1 spirits into play that are colorless for each shrine. Night's Reach makes our opponent discard a card for each shrine. Target opponent, so we get to, keep picking on certain people or spread the love. And then finally, Seeing Winds will draw us a card for each shrine we control. Now, we're going to take a break from shrines for a sec. We do have a propaganda in here because it's the blue shifted version of Ghostly Prison, so why wouldn't we? And stacking both those up is really nice. Now, jumping to the Sanctums, we of course have all 6 of those. Sanctum of Calm Waters, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may draw X cards, where X is the number of shrines you control. If you do, discard a card. So this can stack up to be like drawing a ton of cards and then discarding 1, which we're perfectly fine with. The only thing we want to be careful of is between this and Seeing Winds is that we don't draw our entire deck before we assemble Guildgate Victory Royale. We have Sanctum of the Fruitful Harvest, where we get to add X mana to, of any 1 color, where X is the number of shrines. So we get some free ramp. Sanctum of Shattered Heights, we can pay 1 and discard a land or shrine card. Sanctum of Shattered Heights deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker, where X is the number of shrines you control. So repeatable removal, and something to do if we're drawing a ton of cards to do with our extra lands. Sanctum of Stonefangs is draining our opponents and gaining us life, where X is the number of shrines. Sanctum of Tranquil Light, we can pay 5 and a white to tap target creature, but this ability costs 1 less to activate for each shrine you control. So that effectively becomes pay a white, tap a creature. And finally, Sanctum of All. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may search your library for and or graveyard for a shrine card. Put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If an ability of another shrine you control triggers while you control 6 or more shrines, that ability triggers an additional time. So, again, want to point out, with Honden of Seeing Winds and Sanctum of Calm Waters, you can draw your deck out really fast. You got to be very careful of that, especially if you have Sanctum of All, double triggering those draws. So that's just something to be very wary of. Finally, our last enchantment, because that was only 14, playing Smothering Tithe. Again, this card is starting to get expensive already. The average on TCG Player as of recording right now is like $10, and it's only going to go up. This card's really good. It's going to be a commander staple for a long time, and most importantly, it helps fix our mana for our 5-color deck. You're going to hear that a lot. A lot of this deck's focus is just fixing our mana, because we're a 5-color deck that is not trying to play shocks and fetches and all the amazingly broken things. Finally, moving on to artifacts, Arcane Signet kind of fills in really nicely here. This is actually, there's no Soul Ring in this deck because we don't have a ton to do with colorless mana. I think we could slot it in here, but I think there's just better picks overall. We have Chromatic Lantern because all of our lands becoming rainbow lands seems good. Chromatic Orrery, which turns all of our mana into mana of any color, is also really nice. It can also tap for 5, and it can draw us a card for each color among permanents we control. So I think that all fits together very nicely for a 5-color deck. Again, another very expensive card that's in here. I happen to have some extras out of a collection I bought, so I was able to slot them into a couple decks, but I really do like Chrome Mox in here a lot. One of your more unnecessary 5-color or multicolored spells, if you don't have a use for it in the moment, imprinting it onto a Chrome Mox just gives you a beautiful zero-costed mana rock. Again, if you want, you can't afford the Chrome Mox, you could slot Soul Ring in here, and I think it would be fine. But having a multicolored mana rock that is zero-costed in a 5-color deck, I think, is very important. We also have Expedition Map because that seems very relevant when we're trying to get, a certain string of 10 or 11 different lands onto the battlefield to win the game. Having an Expedition Map to tutor up the pieces we need, really important. Felwar Stone, great mana rock here, because your opponent's always going to have the colors you need, unless they're playing Kozilek or something. But then you'll be fine. The kind of wonky, bad mana rock I'm playing is Firemind Vessel. I actually don't hate it, other than the fact that it enters tapped. But it does set us up to, it taps for 2 mana of different colors. Thematically, it fits with Niv-Mizzet Reborn, but more importantly, it is tapping for, if we have 3 colors already established, it fills in the gap and gets us to our Niv-Mizzet Reborn a lot quicker, so we can start digging through our deck and finding card advantage. Finally, Prismatic Geoscope. Again, another big mana rock that enters tapped, but being able to tap and add X mana in any combination of colors, where X is the number of basic land types among lands you control, is really good. That being said, we are playing a decent amount of basics in here. I put in all the triomes. Those are only 3-colored lands. If you're more budget, you could go with all of the Khans tri-lands or Alara. It was Khans. Yeah, Khans. I think the Khans ones would fit nicely. You could also get the ones from Alara if you wanted. And then you can slot those in here. But I think just the triomes, with all the other ramp we have, I know they entered tapped, and the Guild Gates already entered tapped. But I think it'll be fine, and as we're getting down our Guild Gates, if we end up with backed up on lands and we don't have all of our additional land drops, at least the triomes can be cycled into new cards. So if we're doing well on mana and we just need more action, we can get rid of them. So I think they're a very good fit here. Other than that, whatever rainbow lands you can afford, Cascading Cataracts is still really cheap right now, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on that card. It's an indestructible 5-color land that can fix your land like it's nobody's business. So I think that's really, really good. City of Brass, again, it's like $12, so, but if you can't afford it, it's very, very worth it. Obviously, Command Tower. And then our final strategy, we do have another strategy in our lands to kind of eke out the win, is Field of the Dead. With Field of the Dead, because we're playing all these different individually named lands, we can get up to it pretty quickly. We can start assembling a zombie army. Oh, and then a mana confluence. I was able to shuffle one around that I already owned to make this deck because I actually am building this in paper. I am a handful of cards off from finishing it. Surprisingly, it is not the expensive cards other than Oracle of Maldaya and Uro are the only two because I'm trying to get the newest printing and I'm debating how I want to go about getting the Uro. But it's actually a lot of the Hondens I'm missing. I just picked up Cleansing Fire and Life's Web in the most recent collection, but mostly everything else I have here. Oh, and there is one Planeswalker. I forgot to mention him. Again, we're Azorius. It doesn't conflict with Jengatha, so he snuck in a Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. He draws cards, he screws up our opponent, and if you can emblem him, you know, being able to play the control game by drawing cards and exiling your opponent's stuff seems pretty good, especially if you combine that with Uro. So, forgot about Teferi there for a second, but yes, there is Teferi, Hero of Dominaria in here, Big Teferi, as some of you may know him. No Little Teferi, you can put him in here, but he wasn't needed. And I know I want to give Little Teferi some time to cool down. He is not very beloved right now, and because his card design is a little atrocious, and I think a lot of people are just sick of playing against him in Standard. So he will not be making any appearances for a little while, but until he cools off and some people can get over how salted out they are by that card. But that being said, that's the deck tech. So let me know what you guys thought. Take a look in the description. Also, if you made it to this point in the video, don't forget I have a TCG Player store now, Jesse's Card Empire, same name as the channel. The link is in the description to the storefront. Check it out. You need singles. I am listing singles pretty much daily. I have this brick I got to get up next. But I wanted to get this video recorded. Check it out. We're popping over there. I'm getting a lot of people coming in, able to get the cards they need, and I'm happy to help fill that. And we're going to be expanding out and adding Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh stuff here soon. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Deck list is in the description on Tapped Out, and I will see you next time. Peace.